Welcome to the 7 powerful attitudes. These are the 7 attitudes to live a more excellent life. These are the 7 attitudes that drive my coaching and my public speaking and my training. And there's one attitude that really kind of sets over the top of everything. Maybe not because it's the most important, because all of them are important in their own development and their own progression toward being a good leader and being a person of influence. But the attitude of the insuperable. Insuperable is a real word. Yes, it's in the dictionary and you can look it up. By the way, my name is J. Lauren Norris. I am attitude engineer from Tell It Like It Is. These 7 powerful attitudes will change the way you operate in relationships. They'll change the way you work in the world. They'll change the way you look in the mirror if you allow them to. But this one attitude, the insuperable attitude, the attitude of insuperability, I believe genuinely has the ability all on its own to change the who that you are. The word insuperable, when you look it up in Webster's dictionary, says, and I read this in a 1949, I believe it was, Noah Webster's dictionary, and so it referenced the Berlin Wall, which obviously in 2013 doesn't exist anymore. But it said, something not easily overwhelmed, overcome, or passed by. An example would be the Great Wall of China or the Berlin Wall. Well, both of those are pretty substantial structures. Not easily overwhelmed. You're not going to walk up and push it over like a house of straw. Not easily overcome. It's going to take some doing to get from one side to the other, whether you go around it, go through it, or climb over the top of it. And not easily passed by, meaning it's going to offer some resistance no matter how you try to get through there. I think when we possess an attitude that says the same thing, I will not, because attitude is my choice, I will not be easily overwhelmed. Now, I don't know about you, but there have been times in my life when I felt completely overwhelmed by the circumstances that I found myself in. And it took a lot to get beyond the facts and realize that it was the way that I viewed the issues. It was the attitude that I held toward the facts in front of me that decided my circumstances. Now, the facts didn't necessarily change, but I could be overwhelmed by the circumstances and find myself living under the circumstances, or I could simply change my mind and say, I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to back out. I'm not going to give in to the pressures of this circumstance or these facts or this season of my life. I think we've all probably encountered some time when we've been completely overcome by emotions, overcome by fear, overcome by dread, overcome by a sense of failure that we set out to accomplish a task, and no matter how hard we try, we can't seem to do it. It seems just totally beyond us. And quitting seems like a much better option. Giving up and giving in just seem like the right thing to do because we're overcome by everything around us. Overwhelmed by circumstances, overcome by emotion. And what happens in our life when that happens to us? Generally speaking, opportunity passes us by. When we're overcome by fear and overwhelmed by the circumstances, I don't have enough money in the bank, I don't have enough education, I wasn't raised in the right family, I don't have the right last name, I don't have the right demographic or the right race or live in the right city. And so we're overwhelmed by those circumstances and we let fear overcome us, so we do nothing. We find ourselves frozen, victims of our circumstance, and we don't move, we don't act. And opportunity comes and kind of waves as it rushes right by. And it just keeps going. So we found ourselves overwhelmed and overcome and passed by. But I'm telling you, when you realize that you have the right to stop thinking the negative thoughts, and all of the authority and all of the power in your own life to think the positive thoughts, to believe what is already true, to live your life as if everything is going to work out in your favor. And even if it doesn't, you're not going to let the failures, the mistakes of you or anybody else own you. Then you have the ability to be insuperable, not easily overwhelmed, overcome, or passed by. And when you begin to apply the other 7 attitudes, the other 6 additionals, like cooperation and excellence and expectation and communication and identity, you're going to begin to see that there are little choices that you can make in the things that you say. Little choices that you can make in the things that you hear and believe that will change the way you act, that will change the attitudes that you possess in life, that will change the habits that you have, which will change the set of behaviors that you're known for, that you live by, the things that happen without you even thinking. And that will change your circumstances. And over time, you'll see the cycle repeat itself. If you find yourself in bad circumstances and you choose to live in them, you will always live in them, because you will self-fulfill each time you go around that cycle. Oh, my life is terrible. I am a bad husband or a bad father or a bad wife, and I don't have a good job, and I'm overweight, and I'm always going to be ugly, and nobody's going to love me. And when you say that in yourself long enough, you begin to believe it, then you begin to act like it, then you begin to behave like it. It becomes a habit, and those become the circumstances that you find yourself in. And no one can tolerate you, so no one wants to be around you, and you make it true that everything else that you said is real, when it's really not. As you look at the 7 powerful attitudes to live a more excellent life, I want you to deeply consider things like the impact that changing your attitude to be more an attitude of cooperation or excellence or appreciation would have in your life. I want you to think of those indicative statements that will be mentioned for each of the attitudes. I want you to think about those statements and ask yourself, do I say that? Can I find myself comfortably saying that? Write them down if you have to. Repeat them as often as you have to. You're going to find that the things that roll off your tongue, even without you thinking about them, can change the way you think about them. James Allen wrote a book called As a Man Thinketh. Napoleon Hill said, we get what we think about most of the time. My friends, if you look in the mirror and you don't like the person looking back at you, change the way you look at the person, and everything around you will change as well. You have the right, the ability, and the authority to take control of your circumstances. Use the 7 powerful attitudes. Use those indicative statements. Change the conversation in your head. Change the way you talk to the person in the mirror. And you can become insuperable, not easily overwhelmed, overcome, or passed by. I am J. Lauren Norris from Tell It Like It Is, Attitude Engineer. You can find me on thatguyspeaks.com, and I would love to hear what you think about the 7 powerful attitudes to live a more excellent life.